Well, we're on the Gold Coast. Great to have the Mayor here, but I'll also have a couple of the ministers as well. I just want to provide a couple of details from overnight. We've just had a briefing from the Bureau, and I can confirm the following. The rainfall is easing, rivers are receding, and the threat of heavy rainfall is disappearing. And with that comes the step from response towards recovery. And that's why it's so important that we're here today. And I reckon this is the best briefing we've had as a state for a little while. And I want this community and I want the broader region and indeed all of the state know that we are determined to make sure that there is zero daylight between response and recovery. And we're going to make sure that every single Queenslander is part of that, and that from the north of the state, impacted by floods a month ago, through to the people here who have borne the brunt of this cyclone, everyone will be part of making sure that the recovery goes into full swing. I want to provide some information overnight. I've mentioned that the rivers are receding. The Logan River at Beaudesert peaked above the major flood level at 10.72 metres on Monday. It's expected to continue to fall. The Albert River at Beenleigh exceeded major flood level at 6.02 metres. It's easing. The Bremer River at Ipswich peaked near the major flood level overnight at 11.47 metres. It is also easing. Threat of heavy rainfall has eased. I just want to give some of the totals in the last week to give a scale of the magnitude of the deluge that came in the wake of the cyclone. At Upper Springbrook, we had 1,146 millimetres of rain. There was 835 at Talabudra. There was 592 at North Stratty, 522 at Redlands, 513 at Brisbane City, 475 at Coolangatta, 352 at Nambour, 313 at Ipswich. Significant rainfall. Emergency alerts have been cancelled, and with that comes a sense of relief for a large number of people. I want to give a sense of the scale of the operations in the last 24 hours. So the SES have received another 1,300 odd tasks in the last 24 hours. Remember, there was over 3,500 a couple of days ago in that one-day window. I had the chance this morning to go and thank some of the volunteers at the SES headquarters here on the Gold Coast. There's still a little over 3,000 jobs outstanding, but there's over 1,000 SES personnel in the field. I got the chance to meet some from South Australia who have arrived. We had 100 interstate volunteers arrive yesterday, another 100 today. And think about the combined effort with all of those emergency services personnel on the ground and the difference that they are making. I can report that overnight there were no calls for flood-related service for the Queensland Fire Department, but I do want to take the time to thank them for what they've done. The swiftwater rescues were the difference between life and death during this, and they had been pre-deployed to some of those key areas, and they kept people, gave them hope in a really, really difficult time. And I want to thank all of the emergency services personnel, from the police who went wading through water through those fire and rescue, the SES, the rural fireys who are clearing a way through a path, and I'll get on to our Energex workers in a moment. Power outages. 3/4 of power connections have been re-established, and I'll give that in numbers. So of the around about 450,000 outages, there remains, as of a few moments ago, just a tad under 118,000 without power. That's a significant amount, and that's 118,000 homes, businesses, that's people who aren't able to get back on their feet, and it's a lot of people without the ability to be able to go about normal life. I am pleased to say that the efforts of Energex, they are working around the clock, and I think most people have acknowledged how difficult the situation has been, and we have seen that in the last 24 hours they've answered our call about trying to give more visibility on when power will be restored, and there's a bit more work that needs to be done on that, but it is important that Queenslanders have that hope as to when life can return to normal. And I really want to thank people for the way that they have continued to try and go about daily life without electricity. Yes, there's been a lot of power restored, there's still a lot to go, and I'm very grateful for that. Turning to schools, 360 state schools have reopened today. More than half of Queensland kids are back at school today. And with that comes the ability for their parents to be able to try to get back to life as normal. With that is the ability for a nurse to go to the hospital, which then means that someone can have an elective surgery that they've been waiting for to get life back to normal. Someone can go to the supermarket and stack shelves and be paid and provide for their family, and another person can go and get the goods and services that they desperately need. Schools are at the heart of everything. I really want to thank the teachers, I want to thank the parents, the kids, and above all the principals. And that local decision making makes a difference in disasters, and I want to thank the way that the principals have done that and the way that they've worked with the teachers and have embraced that. Turning to transport, I'm urging people to go to the Queensland Traffic website and stay up to date with those closures. It obviously is a moving feast, but I'll start with major roads. Warrego Highway was cut at Forest Hill. We're hoping that clears very, very soon. It is imminent. The Cunningham Highway is reopened. There is still some damage. Please take care, but that road is reopened. Traffic signals, we're down to about 11% of traffic signals that are out. More of those will come on during the day, but another step on the road to normality. 13 landfills, the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast hinterlands, working to clear those up. And I want to touch on buses for a moment. Buses are scheduled across the broader area. Obviously be prepared, they're not working at full capacity. We expect to see more services come online, but I want to thank everyone for the way that they have tried to get those bus services back online to get people to be able to go back to work and do the things that they need to do. Again, please check the TransLink website. Trains are running on a Sunday timetable, and replacement buses are running where there are gaps in those services as well. Again, check the TransLink website. Gold Coast Light Rail is back up and running. Limited service. I mentioned the other day that it takes some time from when power is restored to when it's re-established, but it is running. But just check those services. And we've been speaking with council around the Brisbane ferries, which we are told is getting closer to being back up and running. And the Moreton ferries are operating, but on a limited timetable. Water. There has been some disruption to water supplies in some areas, and I'm keen to make sure that those communications with those people continue. But at this stage, there's only 2 water treatment plants that have been offline. That was Dayborough and Kenilworth. Water is being trucked in there as we speak. The Gold Coast desalination plant is pumping water into the treatment plant, which will also help in that regard. Telecommunication. There remains some absence of service in some key areas, and those amount of towers are coming offline as power is restored. There's also been temporary power brought to some places, including Russell Island, Stradbroke Island and Macleay Island, and it's important that that occurs because those communities did bear the brunt of the cyclone as it crossed. Turning to waste, tip sites have opened across council. I know the Fraser Coast Recovery Hub is opening today. There's a lot of work on green waste, and I note that my good mate the Lord Mayor on Saturday has invoked the mud army, but in the form of people with utes, and I reckon that's pretty special, and it'll show a great bit of community spirit, and it will help people be able to clear those trees and branches from their yard, and it will enable life to just take one more step towards returning to normal. And I want to thank Adrian for that. A great initiative. Turning to evacuation centres. There are a few people left in some of those evacuation centres, and councils will be closing those, and we will be helping making sure that those people are able to either be returned to home or where they have issues with their housing, that we assist them in that regard. Which leads me to today, and Minister Cam will be announcing the opening of some community recovery hubs, the first of many. And I want to make this point. Community recovery hubs exist to give people hope, a face that they can go in and talk to, a shoulder they can cry on, someone who can help them with financial support, mental health support, just someone to listen. And there's going to need to be a lot of listening because there is a lot of people who've been through a lot. And I'm mindful that these recovery hubs do a power of good work. And I do have to acknowledge the way that Minister Cam has worked with councils and community groups to make sure that we can mobilise these quickly. Our focus is squarely on recovery. Squarely on recovery. I spoke during this about making sure that there was no daylight between it, but we are going to get Queensland back on its feet. Right across the state, we have to make sure that people know that this state is open for business. We are a great state, a place where you can come and enjoy holidays, a place where you can do business, a place where you can move and call home. It's a great place to live, and people need to know that. This recovery will ensure it'll be an even better place to live. Which leads me to some of the disaster assistance payments. And again, I'm also joined by another minister, and that's Recovery Minister Anne Ley. Yesterday, I announced that the federal government had agreed to requests at a local level for Gold Coast, Redlands and Logan. And just moments ago, the federal government has agreed for affected areas of the Fraser Coast as well as the Moreton Bay Council area. The Minister will update that. I stress, as I said yesterday, these will come in waves as the applications come in and as we get Commonwealth approval, and we are determined to make sure that people get the assistance they need to get life back for them and their family. And we are also determined to make sure that broader packages exist to help small and family business to get on their feet, councils to be able to deliver services, make sure that key infrastructure is in place. Before I hand over to my mate beside me, and I want to thank you, Tom, for joining us today, let me finish on this. Disasters always test people's resolve, it tests infrastructure, but above all, it tests the ability for people to go from tragedy to being able to get back on their feet. And from what I've seen during what is the first cyclone across the coast this far south in 50 years, I've seen people who have been willing to do their bit to help their neighbour, to do their bit to be able to communicate messages, to do their bit to make sure that they're part of a community. And I want every Queenslander to know we are determined to flick the switch from response to recovery. And this isn't going to be a one-day effort or a one-week effort. Recovery takes time. But if you're focused and if you have people at the heart of what you do, communities do bounce back from disasters. And I have every faith so too will a very largely populated area of a magnificent state. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you. Well, it's great that the Premier chose our Disaster Management Emergency Centre to run the disaster management meeting from there this morning, and to sit in all that. You can see the coordination has been fantastic, and with our own disaster management meeting at 1 o'clock, we've taken heed with all the information from the state level that we will now be switching our disaster management into recovery mode. The first meeting is 1 o'clock today, and I'll do media straight after that. There are some areas of a bit of concern, is that that there are, up in the northern part of our city, there's still some flooding warning there. Jacobs Well area is still cut off. I really appreciate the volunteers, ADF and the police. I mean, when I saw footage on the hovercraft going from home to home, that's the only way they can manage to check people out. And it just highlights the spirit of Queensland, that we really bond together. From now forward, the concentration is that with our recovery, we will send a message out that the city of the Gold Coast, and as the Premier said, Queensland, will be ready to make sure that we welcome back Aussie tourists for the April holidays, so that we don't face economic disaster as a result of Alfred. And it'll be a proud moment that we can put all the jigsaw puzzle back and as good as ever. Thank you for the opportunity, Premier.
Thank you. And thank you, Mayor. Thanks for having us today as part of the QDMC down here on the Gold Coast, and what a resilient community the Gold Coast is, as well as our broader South East Queensland community. Today I can announce that community recovery will be opening 6 hubs across southeast Queensland. They are across the 3 local government areas of here on the Gold Coast, the Redlands and also Logan, as we progress our recovery efforts. Our teams have leaned in and worked with local councils, and we thank the efforts of the mayors of our local councils across southeast Queensland who've worked with us alongside the response to ensure a seamless road to recovery. And that's why I'm pleased to be able to announce today across the Redlands that we'll be opening a recovery hub at Thornlands Dance Palais Hall, also a pop-up on Russell Island that was commencing at midday today, and we know those islands are welcoming the outreach that our pop-up recovery hub will provide there. Here, and I do want to thank the Community Centre, the Council and all of our partners in community, in particular Lifeline here at Nerang. And it was wonderful to speak with Gary, one of the volunteers who's actually just come from the Ingham disaster. So recovery hubs are all about having that human touch to be able to, when you need seeking support and assistance, that you can have that referral here as part of our response to recover. But we also have other partners like Energex here in the room. We have Justice of the Peace if you have misplaced your identity documents, if you need that verification. Those are the types of services that you will receive in a recovery hub. We've got a pop-up hub at Burleigh Waters and another hub standing up today at Coomera, as well as at Beenleigh at Logan. We will continue to work with local governments in the coming days, and I look forward to being able to announce further hubs across the Scenic Rim, the Brisbane City Council area, and as we work as part of the clean-up and the recovery, we'll also be working with our communities in the Lockyer, the Ipswich, the Toowoomba and the Somerset region. The Premier also touched on Hervey Bay. We have been working with the council up there to ensure that recovery commences as soon as able. That community were taken by that rain event, and we want to make sure that as part of the response efforts there that we will work closely with that council in standing up recovery efforts there as well. I just want to urge Queenslanders, particularly on the Gold Coast, if you want to find out more information, that you can go to our government website, and it's www.qld.gov.au disaster help, and we also have our Lifeline call centre number as well as our disaster recovery number to help support in the assistance of processing of grants, but I'll leave more of that detail to Minister Ley.
I firstly want to thank the Premier and also the Mayor for the opportunity, and Minister Cam, to be here today on the Gold Coast, which is such an important area when it comes to recovery. All 3 levels of government are working closely together to make sure that we activate assistance for the people here on the Gold Coast, but also in this very large southeast corner area that has been impacted by Tropical Cyclone Alfred. We have already activated personal hardship for the LGAs of Redlands, the Gold Coast City and also Logan. That enables, that $180 enables people to be able to replace food, but also get clothing, but also essential medicines as well. Today I'm pleased to announce that we have activated as well the entire LGA area, the entire Moreton Bay City Council area, and also targeted areas in the Fraser Coast. We will continue to work closely with councils as damage assessments are done and information comes from those councils. We will work with that information, taking that forward to the Commonwealth Government for review, and as we receive that information, we'll make sure that it is swiftly worked through that process to ensure that there are swift approvals and activations for people across this area who certainly need that assistance going forward. And I just want to thank the councils very much for the work that they have done on the ground. It's been really important to make sure that we get that information, and also from the damage assessments to make sure that we can get swift approvals to make sure we can activate assistance for people who need it across this area. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anne. Thank you, Anne, and thanks, Amanda. Over to you guys.
Premier, there's still thousands of people without power. Are you sort of happy with, I know it's something with the Gold Coast recently, but there's people being told they're not going to get power back till Saturday.
Yeah, no, look.
Are you happy with
Oh, it's tough. You know, we're dealing with over 400,000 homes and businesses without power at the start of it, and whilst 3/4 of those have been reconnected, that doesn't mean a lot if you're the quarter that hasn't got it back on. And so I guess what we wanted is to try to give every opportunity for people to at least see that window when it's coming back on. And I'm mindful there's still some hurdles in that website as well. That was only built yesterday when we requested it, and we thank them for doing that. But people need two things. One is they need the reassurance that everything's being done, and I'm talking about everything. It's 800 ergon workers from the other end of the state who are here, away from their families, helping try to get those connections up. And there's well over 1,000 Energex staff, and I met a few of them yesterday. Some of them don't have power at their house, and they're, you know, so they're working around the clock as well. But you know, I said yesterday, it's pretty tough if you're at day 5 and you've got a few kids and you've lost the food in your fridge and you've lost any connection with other family. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough, which is why we give the assurance on twofold. One is every resource is there, and they are throwing the kitchen sink at it. And secondly, trying to give as much visibility to as many people as possible as to when that power is coming back on, so at least they can plan. So for most people, that power will be back on in the next little window, and you can see that based on the timelines they've given. But for others, and talking about those including in the valley where you're saying, it's not going to be until Sunday, and that's a long time to wait.
But the job's being prioritised. I mean, you've got people without power for well over a week, and then you've got people in Brisbane sort of getting their power straight away.
But they're throwing everything at it. They're throwing everything at it, and when you think that they're reconnecting effectively a city the size of Bundy every day, it's a big effort. But that, you know, that doesn't underlie how difficult it is for someone without power, unable to lift their life back. I just want them to know that we pre-positioned staff from the other end of the state here, because I've seen a few cyclones before, and I know the impact on power, and we predicted what would occur. So we had people here, which has given them a bit of a head start. Now that doesn't change the fact how difficult it is if you're without power for that long.
Just with the schools reopening, how long will it take for QBill to do all of the school inspections?
Well, that wave's happening, and it's driven locally by the principals. And I want Queenslanders to know that I back local decision making, and it's local decision making that has now got more than half the schools back. And it's only happened because of principals that care about their community, teachers that care about their kids, and a system where individuals can take responsibility. And they've done that, and as a result we've got kids back to school quicker than ever before. Now there are some schools that still don't have power, many that have got issues with trees that may have fallen on buildings, and there's complications there. But overwhelmingly, schools are back up. More than half of them are back online today. That's a pretty big effort from those school communities, and that's why I back local decision making.
Will all of those schools need an inspection? Will all of those schools that are still closed need an inspection by QBill before?
Yeah, all of the first wave have been done. What's happening now is we're prioritising works that are needed to be done and reconnecting power that needs to go to those schools. But my priority is to get kids back to school, and I think people have seen that through this. I'm a big believer in education for a couple of reasons. One is kids need school for normality and to get them back on their feet. But also communities need workers. So every one of those kids has a parent or a guardian who are the following. They might be that person who is operating on your loved one. They might be a doctor. They might be someone who's working at the local servo to enable you to put petrol in your tank or fuel in your generator, if you've got one, to try and have some sense of normality in a really difficult world. So that's why schools are so important. And that's why you've got to do all you can, because when people can send their kids back to school, they can move from response to recovery. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about that, because I've seen what happens when governments don't prioritise that. You've got to have a focus on saying to people, this is the light at the end of the tunnel, this is what normal looks like, this is what a better community looks like, let's go and get it. And everything we do is about enabling people to flick the switch from response to recovery. And I've spoken about that during this journey, about people being at different stages at different times. So here on the coast, you know, we've had people for several days who have been picking up branches in their yard and trying to get back on their feet. Well, you've got the community of Laidley who are still putting out water from the business. So everyone is at different stages, but you make sure that everybody is able to immediately move on and be uplifted and be part of that recovery. And you're going to see a lot of it. And I say again to our friends and in many cases for me, my friends and family and loved ones at the other end of the state, you're at the start of your recovery journey too, and we'll see it through.
Do you know how many schools are going to be studying NAPLAN?
Well, good question on NAPLAN. So NAPLAN is due tomorrow. So any of the schools that aren't impacted, it's business as usual. Those that are impacted, principals have made a local decision, but we have allowed them, by virtue of there's a 2-week window. That will be on Monday for those affected schools, but that's a case-by-case basis.
Some schools in Brisbane are saying they haven't been authorised to enter school sites. Who's deciding if the school needs QBuild to come or if the staff can make their own decisions?
Sorry, my apologies, I didn't hear
So
that.
some schools in Brisbane are saying they haven't been authorised to enter the school sites. Who's deciding?
No, it's driven by the principal working with QBuild, and our overriding principle is the moment it's safe, the moment there's power back on, kids go back to school, and I'm a big believer in school, and I think you can see that.
Is it QBuild or the principal?
The principal drives the local decision making, and we have QBuild staff helping do the work that needs to be done.
There's discrepancies in the level of support for those hardship grants in New South Wales and Queensland. I think firstly the eligibility criteria. In New South Wales you just have to be without power for 48 hours. Here it's 5. And then they get more money as well. Here it's 150 for individuals and 750 for families. They get 180 for individuals and 900.
Your figures aren't right. It's 180. It's 180 here as well. And
Eligibility criteria though.
yeah, no, it's same. If you lose power for more than 48 hours, you're eligible. It's that. Just remember that they're done with the Commonwealth. They're working with the Commonwealth, so there's consistency there. And I have to say, we've had the federal minister here from day one, and I think her level of interest has been excellent. And by virtue of that, we've been able to turn applications around pretty quickly. The moment we've got them from local governments, we've been able to turn them around. And it's important because people need to be able to get back on their feet.
And I think as of this morning, according to the website, Brisbane and Ipswich have been added. Can you confirm they will?
Yeah. So, and again, I come back to what I said yesterday. It is important that the moment councils determine that they need their community's assistance, we need to process it and we need to work with the Commonwealth and make those announcements. And it gives people hope, it gives a light at the end of the tunnel, and I can assure you when councils speak, I listen. We've had them at the disaster management meetings the whole way through, and it gives us the barometer where they are able to drive that local decision making, and they've done a good job.
Is there an estimate of the cost of what this disaster? How much of a hit it's going to have on the budget?
It'll be large, but during disasters, your biggest issue is not the financial one, it's the emotional one, it's the social one, it's communities ripped apart, it's families having to make tough decisions. That's got to be front and centre. And of course, it'll be a costly recovery. Recoveries always are, but recoveries aren't marked on how much you spend, it's on how much you get to lift the community, and it's on whether or not you can make things a little better than you found them before, and whether or not you can make communities a little tougher. And I reckon so far I've seen nothing but great will from Queenslanders to do that.
No figure is this.
Over to you, Tom.
Talking about the recovery in terms of tourism, do you know roughly damage to the tourism economy following this cyclone?
Well, if we can recover quickly, by April, the damage will be limited as far as the number of tourists will be here. So it's about putting the brand and the welcoming mat and paint the picture, the clear blue skies back, and that's what we'll be doing the next 3 weeks, and so that we would avoid that. I absolutely believe it, based on, I think looking at 2013 with Oswald, we got it back, majority of it in 3 weeks, and now we have better planned equipment, better preparedness, and so I'm absolutely confident we'll do that. From the view from the sky yesterday, from Broadbeach all the way to Coolangatta, all the design work that we've done and implemented, those beaches held up really well, particularly the plants and all the grass on the sand. It didn't wash away, so that convinced me that that artificial reef in Palm Beach is intact. Previously, it would be devastated. So all those preparedness, and now we will look at future solution on the northern part of our city. Narrow Neck will be our biggest vulnerable part, and I'll be looking at some solution there.
Last question, guys.
Just back onto the schools, West End State School says it is remaining closed today as essential safety checks have not been completed by QBuild and have not received authorisation to enter the school. So is that sort of the odds?
No.
Do they need that essential inspection?
No. The moment a principal says it's safe to do so, we will open schools. And I want Queensland parents to know we understand how important it is to get your kid back to school for their education, but also so you can make a living and so you can serve your community, and so that's our going in priority. So the moment a school principal says it's good to go, we want kids back at school.
Thank you, guys.
So the moment the decision is for the principal. The school principal is in charge of their school, and we want parents to know we value their time, we value the education for their kids, and we will do everything we can to make it work. And where things need a bit of an upgrade, well, of course we'll help and prioritise that. But we want local decision making, and local decision making today means that more than half of schools have reopened. You've never seen things done that quickly, but that's because of local decision making, and that's what happens when you have good people like teachers and principals driving recovery, and they've done that.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, just
Residents there felt they were kind of caught off guard
Yeah.
by that rain on Sunday night. Did
Yeah.
the government get any warning from BOM about
well, look, I'll let the Bureau of Meteorology, which is a federal government body, speak about their warnings, but I'll just say this point. The moment I have received information throughout this event, whether it be weather, whether it be about other assistance from other levels of government, whether it be any bit of information that's come to me from the community, I've shared it. I've shared it in real time, and I think Queenslanders have seen that. We've done press conferences with you where I've received information literally as I'm walking up, and I've shared it with Queenslanders. No filter, sharing it with Queenslanders. And I have this view philosophically that if you do that, people overwhelmingly are good and they make good decisions. So I can assure you that the moment we receive advice, we have given it to Queenslanders. And as for when the Bureau of Meteorology shared that advice, well, obviously that's for the Bureau, but I can assure Queenslanders I want them to know that we will be there in the same open book that we've held the response, will be the same open book in the recovery.
panic buying? Apparently we've seen panic buying even just like shells stripped bare, even in places like Mount Isa,
Yeah.
across the state and in the bush that weren't affected by the disaster. People
Yeah.
have been told not to panic buy. What is causing the shortages?
Well, look, I come back to my message to supermarkets, and that is, we'll do all we can to enable them to meet the demand that is at shops. And we've already spoken about 24/7 distribution centres, which we're allowing them to do for a fortnight to replenish those stocks. We've done all we can to assist them to get their workers back to the shop, including having school for their kids. We'll continue to do everything, and we ask the supermarkets to put all their resources into making sure that shelves are full, because people in many cases will be getting power back for the first time in a long time, and they need to go and restock their fridges and freezers and their cupboards. I think that's fair and reasonable, and I'm urging them to use every resource they can to stock shelves and do that across the state. Thanks, guys. Thanks very much.